So Maggie, can you tell us where you volunteered?
I volunteered in Port Elizabeth in South Africa. I talked to Kate while I was deciding where to go. I would have loved to have gone to Nepal, but she pointed out to me that as I had dodgy chest, that it might be a good idea to go somewhere where it was at sea level, and apparently Kathmandu is very polluted. So South Africa it was, and it certainly wasn't on my original thinking, but I'm really glad. I had a wonderful experience.
How long ago was it that you went, Maggie?
It was actually 6 years ago. I was coming back about now at the time of the Icelandic
The ash cloud problem.
at the ash cloud, and I did manage to get back to the UK, but I thought, had I been delayed in Port Elizabeth, I would, for a week or so, I'd have been absolutely delighted. I did not want to be delayed in Johannesburg airport.
I can understand that. Looking back on it now, Maggie, what do you remember about the experience for you?
I came back with it was a life-changing experience for me. That sounds very corny, but I think I came back realising how very fortunate we are in the UK. We grumble about it, but these people with whom I was working had more or less nothing. The carers, I worked in a little township project which was run by local people, and I was very much there to work alongside them, not for them, or not certainly the idea was to share my experience, which is in healthcare. It made me realise how little I knew after 50 odd years, and how irrelevant to their experience my experience was. It's a project which, as I say, was run by local people, for local people, addressing the needs of the community, very much affected by HIV AIDS. That was really the principal feature of the township life, I think. The people that I worked with were amazingly cheerful and jolly and made the best of everything. I heard very, very few complaints. They were quite interested in me as a person. Couldn't believe I was still upright at my age. I was still under 70 then. And they were desperate to share any relevant knowledge that I had, which I tried to do. A lot of what I planned was not necessarily terribly relevant to them. We visited housebound elderly. We should all do something we'd never done before in our lifetime. I did actually do a bed bath wearing a sun hat, which I'd certainly never done before. I showed my particular work colleague how to do exercises for housebound elderly using water bottles filled with water as weights. In my spare time, we distributed school uniform. I helped in the kitchen sometimes. We were at that point in time feeding 200 vulnerable children, and also some school children. School children came in for food and stayed afterwards for a little bit of education in its broadest sense, run by my colleague who had a completely different background. Every now and again he would say, if anything crops up girl-wise, would you be willing? And I said yes, but thankfully it never did. Well, what more can I say, really?
Maggie, do you think you made a difference?
I have to confess that I was very jealous of my co-worker because he left behind something you could touch. He managed to install an outside sink for the kitchen to use. There was no room in the kitchen itself, which was just a container. He managed to install an outside sink, and I left nothing that you could touch. But I'd like to think I made a little bit of difference to the chaotic record keeping.
And it clearly touched you, didn't it?
It did, indeed it did, indeed it did. And I know David did an interview like this and made a comment that he'd seen me in tears a few times, and that was true. The first day I could not believe that people were having to put up with these conditions and how cheerfully they were doing it. And I came back grateful for what I have and what we have in this country. Indeed.
Thanks, Maggie.
Yes, I'd love to go back.
Thanks very much.